So every new year, millions of people are setting goals to better themselves in some way right around the time of the new year. And I find this time to be very interesting because it seems as though within a few weeks of going through January of this coming year, people start to forget about their New Year's resolutions, they start to forget about their goals, and they remember them at the end of the year, at which point they set those goals for the next year, and they continue to do this year after year. Maybe it's to become healthier, to work out every day, or to go back to school, or to focus on this one hobby that you've just never had any time to do. So you set that goal for the next year, and then somehow it just seems to slip away. Now what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you my strategies for setting goals and then achieving those goals, as well as sort of how I plan my life. I've gotten this question quite a bit, so I wanted to just go through, make a thorough, very personal video as to how I go about this process. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is not a one-size-fits-all. This is not necessarily something that's going to work for you, but it works for me. And there's a chance that you might be able to take some of this information and use it for yourself as well. So first of all, one of the things that I do is I actually plan my life starting backwards. And this might sound very strange, but it actually very much keeps me happy, it keeps me in check. And it's by essentially saying, where do I want to be at the end of my life? Who do I want to be remembered as? Who do I want at my funeral? Maybe that's a strange way to think about this, but this is just what I personally do. And like I said, this is what keeps me happy, it keeps me content, and it very much keeps me in check because it makes sure that I make decisions for the long run instead of just thinking short term. And I've seen people do this, whether it be in business or in life, where they're making these short term decisions where they're cutting ties with family members, or they are making these short term money grabs in business that are going to end up hurting them in the long run, but they're just focused too much on the short term. So what I do is I start from way at the end of my life and I say, where do I want to go? And then I work backwards from that. And it's okay if you don't know where you want to be in 20 years. Nobody knows where they're going to be in 20 years. But what I like to do, and what I think is very important for people to do, especially if you're lost at any point or you're wondering how you should set your goals, is to start working backwards and to say, well, what do I want my dream life to be? What would, who would my friends be? Who would my family be? Where would I live? What would be this sort of utopian life that you could have? And one of the first steps to do is to write it down. Now, I've said this multiple times in other videos, but look guys, you need to write down your thoughts. You need to dump your brain onto some paper, or at the very least, write it in the notes on your phone. But organizing your thoughts somewhere in writing is going to have such an influential effect on yourself. Now look, what I would used to do is I would try to keep this all in my brain, and I would try to think about these goals that I would set for the next year, and I'd keep them inside of my head. What happens there? Well, just like with a computer where you might have 500 gigabyte storage on your computer, your brain starts to forget things over time, and it starts to overwrite, and it just forgets about these ideas that maybe you had 2 months ago that you forgot to write down, and there's a chance you're never going to remember them ever again. So the point here is to start writing down your ideas, and even if it's something that might seem absolutely ludicrous, this idea or this goal of, it'd be really interesting to work at NASA, or it would be interesting to become a senator in my state. Write down some things that you would just really love to do in your life if you could do it. And hey, look, everything starts with an idea. Amazon, this trillion-dollar company, started with an idea from Jeff Bezos. Apple Computer, it started with just a simple idea from Steve Jobs. So even something that seems so absolutely out of this world, ludicrous, it all started with somebody just writing it down on a piece of paper. And so imagine if you were going to attempt to lose weight in this coming year and you never stepped on a scale. That doesn't make very much sense, right? Well, you need to track your progress of losing weight. And just like with tracking your progress of losing weight by stepping on a scale, you're going to want to be able to measure how far you're getting towards your other goals in life as well, such as maybe you have a goal of you want to run a marathon at the end of this year. So it's important to write these down and see how you're progressing over time to see if you're getting better, if you're getting worse. If you're getting worse, there's something going on, and you can start to find what areas you need to improve upon. So that's one of the first steps, is just by simply writing down all of your ideas. And look, you don't have to know exactly how you're going to get to your goal, especially if it's something absolutely that seems so far-fetched, that seems so far away. Maybe it's something like you want to break the world record in the mile. That sounds absolutely insane, right? But when you start to break it down, it can become much more feasible, or at least much more likely than what it would be for most people who are thinking about their goals but never actually act upon them. So let me kind of share with you how I go through this process of not only setting goals, but breaking them down into bite-sized fragments so that something that seems so far away can suddenly seem much simpler or much more of a process that you can get to it and much more doable. So let's take, for example, let's say that you are not very satisfied with the current political situation and you decide that at some point in your life you want to become a congressperson in the United States or in your country because you want to make a difference, right? So you say, okay, well, say that you're 25 now and you want to be there in 10 years. Now, 10 years is quite a bit of time, but even when looking at that statistically, well, in the US, there's one congressperson for about every 800,000 people in the United States. So the odds are not in your favor. But does that mean you can't get there? No, absolutely not. And I think anybody who tries to instill limitations onto others are just sort of reflecting their own limitations that they've set on themselves. So really, I don't see any limits in life. Obviously, not everybody can be Michael Jordan. I can't be Michael Jordan. But for the most part, there's not many limits in life. And that's really how I view it. So if you wanted to become a congressperson in 10 years, you start to break this down. You start to say, well, okay, if I want to be there in 10 years, where should I be in 5 years? And you say, okay, well, maybe I should hold some type of smaller position, like a position on a school board, or maybe the treasurer in my local township, or the tax collector, or some type of smaller position, but a step away from Congress, right? And then maybe start working backwards even more and say, okay, well, if I want to be there in 10 years and I say that, okay, I want to have a smaller position of, say, being on a school board in 5 years, where should I be in 2 years? Well, maybe I should focus on finishing my college degree in political science, or maybe I should start to volunteer for some campaigns. And you break it down even further. You say, what should I do in this coming year? What should I do in 2020? Well, maybe your goal would be to spend 15 to 20 hours per week working for a local political organization or political campaign for the coming elections. And that would be one of your goals for this year. And you start to break it down even further, and you break it down into the month, you break it down into this coming week, and you break it down into what are you going to do today. And it could be something as simple as going and talking to your local political organization or talking to your local congressperson to try to get a better idea of the job that it might entail and how you can get further towards that goal. That's just an example there. You break it down into these bite-sized segments, and it sort of becomes a lot easier to actually tackle. It's just like if you're going to write a book. Well, you're not going to just try to write this whole book in a day because that would just seem totally overwhelming. You break it down. You say, instead of writing a full book and being faced with that pressure, you say, every day I'm going to write 5 pages, or I'm going to write 1,000 words a day for this book. And then suddenly it becomes much more feasible. It suddenly becomes much easier to actually achieve that goal. Now, I'm actually going to share a couple of my goals with you, and then I'm going to show you 2 strategies that I use to actually achieve those goals and follow through with them. It's something that's worked quite well for myself. One of them, this is really getting on a personal level, but one of them is to retire by 30. People think that's ludicrous, but I set that goal when I was 16, and I've been working towards it, and I've made quite a bit of progress towards actually getting to that goal. And I like to think that I'm going to get there. I've been making a lot of great progress. Maybe there's going to be some hiccups, maybe there's going to be some setbacks, and that happens. That's understandable. But I broke it down into every single year. What should I do? How much money should I save? And going back to what I said much earlier in this video about keeping your head in the long run, thinking about planning your life backwards, by setting these long-term goals and then working backwards, I can say, you know what? If I want to retire at 30, then I probably shouldn't buy that Starbucks today. I should probably just make some coffee on my own and save $5. And that little decision, those little habits on an everyday basis is going to start to add up quite a bit, and it allows you to really tackle that goal much easier. That's one of my goals. Another is to have a family by 35. Now, this one's going to be a little bit more difficult to actually achieve at that time or to measure that very easily. It's not something you can rush, obviously, but it's still something on my list. I'm going to start working towards eventually at some point before I'm 35. Another one is that I want to have a massive 1,000-acre farm. I'm not afraid to say that, but the truth is I'm going to need quite a bit of money to buy a 1,000-acre farm. You're going to need close to $1 million for that. So I need to find a way to make more money, and I need to find a way to get to that goal. So what I've started to do was find ways to increase my income quite significantly over the past few years, and I'm going to continue to do that in the coming years. And that's not to sound conceited in any way whatsoever. That's just to show you that this is what the goals that I set many years ago, and I'm starting to really focus on breaking those down into smaller fragments. Now, what I want to kind of share with you here, first of all, is to set measurable goals. If you set the goal of you want to become healthier, or you want to become a better runner, or a better writer, or you want to become a better parent, that's not very measurable of a goal. And if it's not measurable, you're not going to have any way of tracking your progress. It's going to be difficult to even write it down, put it into words of how far you've gotten. So you need to set something that's measurable. And in most cases, this is going to be by having numbers in some case in one way or another. So if you wanted to become more involved in your church, instead of just setting the goal of becoming more involved, you should set the goal of, I want to make sure that I go to church every Sunday or every week. So you're setting something a little bit more measurable for yourself. Now, there's two ways that I really go about achieving my goals. And this is kind of an interesting thing that I want to bring up here. But essentially, the one strategy for hitting your goals is to use the pleasure side of it. So let's say that you wanted to become a really good runner, you wanted to win the race for your local community event, your local community 5K, and you wanted to be the #1 runner. Well, the pleasure driver for this goal would be to think about winning that race. Whenever you go out for a run, why do you wake up in the morning and go for a run? Because you're thinking about getting that gold medal, right? So that's the pleasure side of it. That good feeling of winning or achieving that goal is going to be a great feeling, right? Then there's another side to it that you want to be very careful with, and I can't necessarily recommend this for people because I don't want it to induce stress onto others. I've used it in the past, and I still use it from time to time, but it's a driver to achieve your goals that can be a little bit sticky, a little bit tricky, but I'm going to share it with you anyway because this is me, this is personal, this is what I've done in the past, and like I said earlier, it's not going to fit everybody, it's not going to work for everybody, but there's pain drivers for achieving goals as well, and you want to make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons, of course. But an example of this is that, say that you wanted to work out 3 times a week. Say you wanted to go for a run 3 times a week, right? And you just can't find yourself doing it. You sleep in, maybe you're going out to party or something, and you just don't find yourself working out as much as you would like to. So what I've seen people do and what I've done in the past is you set some type of pain-oriented goal in the sense that you are setting a consequence for if you don't achieve that goal. So an example here is that if you set that goal of working out 3 times a week and you don't do that because you just sleep in or you don't really feel like it, you're too lazy, then every time you don't work out, you give your friend $20. That's just an example there, and there's a lot of other ways that people go about this. But having some type of consequence for not hitting the goal. Now, I want you to be very cautious with this, and this is why I can't really recommend it because it could induce stress. I've set these things for myself before at much higher levels than just $20. I found it to be very beneficial, and it's the reason why I've been doing pretty well with business in the past couple of months is because I set some of these sort of consequences for not achieving my goals, and it's worked for me, guys. So, maybe you shouldn't do that. Just big disclaimer. Don't do that. Focus on the pleasure-oriented goals. Focus on the winning side of it, of getting that gold medal, of becoming healthier, of becoming a better writer instead of the pain side of it. But I don't even really know why I brought that up, but it's just something that I've done. And that's just me. That's personal. So thanks for watching the video, everyone. I really appreciate all the support on the channel. And I really wish everybody the best of luck with their goals in the next coming year. I think anything's achievable in life. So thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate all the support, guys. And I'll see everybody in the next video.